at me and tell me what you see.
I look at you and tell you what I feel. Look at me and tell me what you see. I look at you and tell you what I feel.
Welcome back to the Hellraiser series with Hellraiser 6 Hellseeker, and something a little unexpected. This is in fact the last Hellraiser film to continue the original 4-movie continuity. And guess who's back? Yes, Ashley Lawrence as Kirsty Cotton returns. And one other thing, did you enjoy Hellraiser 5? No? Well, too bad. Hellraiser 6 is pretty much the exact same movie. But all in good time. This is Hellraiser 6 Hellseeker. We start with a quote from Dante's Inferno, because quotes will always make a movie seem far deeper and more complex without any effort. Plus, Dante's Inferno was essentially the author's self-insertion fanfiction where he got to put all his critics and anyone he didn't like in hell. In many ways, it's just as shallow as this film, so great quote. After the stupid credits of nothing but the puzzle box spinning in a CGI equivalent to the film jangling its keys in your face, we see our main character and Kirsty. Yes, Kirsty is not our main character and barely appears in the film, making her and Pinhead, who barely appears as well, feel like token gestures from established Hellraiser characters. They're a happily married couple until we see them in some kind of tickling fight whilst driving the car, and then kissing, again, whilst driving the car, which I think fate decides to punish them for flouting its rules. Narrowly avoiding the car, they drive off an incredibly convenient ramp into the water below. The car sinks and there's a struggle below the water, and Trevor, Kirsty's husband, manages to free himself and get to the surface, not noticing Kirsty is still trapped. He tries to get the door open, but it's jammed, and as he sees Kirsty seemingly drown, he suddenly wakes up in a hospital. Yep, this film actually has the audacity to kill off Kirsty Cotton. And to kill her off in a car accident of all things, that's bad enough. But just wait, it'll get a lot worse before the end of this movie. Anyway, Trevor is in hospital and he asks for Kirsty, but the nurse just gives him a sedative. And then he wakes up strapped to a device, having his brain examined as a doctor starts a poking, obviously trying to create the ultimate Hellraiser scriptwriter. And then Trevor wakes up back in the hospital with the doctor like it was a dream. And this time, Trevor's in the hospital for headaches as the crash happened some time ago. Can anyone say Jacob's Ladder at all? Also, you know when I said that Hellraiser 5 felt like a regular horror movie just adapted into a Hellraiser film? Well, turns out I was right, and it's the same situation here, with it starting out as some kind of Jacob's Ladder-like movie, and then being adapted into a Hellraiser. But with Hellraiser 6 doing the exact same weird goings-on mystery that Hellraiser 5 did, it makes you wonder if they didn't just adapt the same script again. And these kind of weird hallucinations will be commonplace throughout the film, because instead of giving you an actual story, the film will just move from weird hallucination to the next, ad nauseum. Also, if you know the plot twist to Jacob's Ladder, you know this movie's plot twist. The film is basically Pinhead's Ladder, if you will. And again, not Hellraiser. Although with this film, it's a little less obvious, which we'll get into. The doctor says he's going to release Trevor, and he asks about Kirsty again, which is when the police investigator appears. He tells Trevor that Kirsty, or Kirsty's body, is missing, and Trevor volunteers to go back to the scene and talk them through it, but the cop says he already did it months ago. And realising it's a bad time, he lets Trevor go home, but not before showing us which cop show the writers were watching when they wrote this.
Oh, one more thing.
Just one more thing.
The cop Columbos his way back and tells Trevor that although he thinks the doors to the car were locked, the cops found Kirsty's passenger side door open when they pulled it from the river. And that's pretty much your setup for the film. It's a mystery about Kirsty's death, combined with Jacob's Ladder-like visuals and hallucinatory moments. How does the box and the Cenobites fit in, you ask? Not very well and not very much. Trevor takes the bus home and tells a pierced punk to turn down his music. He does not. And getting off the bus, Trevor gets to his apartment and reminisces about Kirsty a bit before going to bed, which is quite possibly the most normal sequence of events the entire movie. The next day, Trevor's at work in his soulless office of cubicles, slightly less soulless than this film, of course, and he gets talking with his friend, who's wondering where he went the day before, assuming he got laid. Because that's the actions of a man with a missing, presumed dead wife. Yeah, just like the last film, no one really acts the way they should. Least of all Trevor most of the time. Trevor tries to gather himself in his cubicle and then he spots a business card just simply saying all problems solved, which bring back memories to him. He remembers going to an out-of-the-way dealer in some disused building, finding a Chinese sweatshop, and something else visually similar to Jacob's Ladder, although I'm not sure what I'm looking at exactly. Then the store owner appears.
I can see into your soul.
Which I think is trying to be like the merchant from the beginning of Hellraiser, or possibly the bum from the same movie. However, because in this film the merchant is also played by Doug Bradley, the feeling Hellraiser gave, which was mystery and thoughts of many creatures existing to preserve and make sure the box gets used by people, is replaced by the feeling that Pinhead is the ruling devil figure of all, responsible for everything. Which, if you've been keeping up with these reviews, you know how boring I think that is. Trevor goes to the break room using the vending machine. Huh, must be one of those Japanese vending machines. Then Trevor's boss, who's written like a dominatrix because childish writers, starts sexing him up, and while messing around, Trevor gets some memories of other sexy times with her. Fuck the mystery in these films. Frankly, I'm sick of it. You've seen Jacob's Ladder, you've seen Hellraiser 5, you know the plot twist. But no, I'll keep quiet, the anger and annoyance will fuel me. But let's just say, there is a reason why no one cares about Kirsty and why everyone acts fucking weird. It's still a lazy crutch for the writers though. Trevor gets back to his cubicle and finds a video playing of his break room romp, but it really doesn't amount to anything or add to the plot, it's just there. And then he gets a call from Officer Columbo who has more information. So we move to the station immediately in the very next scene, with the officer saying they found evidence of foul play, as more memories emerge of the crash that look different without the happy scenario we saw at the start. But snapping out of it, Trevor is allowed to go home. And at his stop, he finds a dog cowering, and then he looks behind him. Oh Christ, it's the engineer again from Hellraiser 5. He's doing a pyramid head and popping up places he doesn't belong. Oh, no wait, he's walking off. He's realised his mistake. Back home, Trevor looks out the window and... Oh God, the engineer's back. Go home, engineer, you're drunk. You're in the wrong movie. Actually, for some reason, the engineer makes Trevor choke. At least it's filmed to look that way, as he starts spasming, and then regurgitates an eel. But don't worry, it was another fucking psych out. Don't you just love those? Also, the engineer stuff. Yeah, he literally has no reason to be in this film, which is why I actually do think it's the engineer in the wrong movie. Otherwise it's just random shit for random's sake, which is just bad writing. Trevor gets a knock at his door from a neighbour whom he acts like he's never met, just like he's been acting towards everyone. And she acts sexually towards him, which I would say is because of the mystery, but it's also because the writers want TNA in their film. Trevor relaxes by putting a videotape in. Christ, this movie's out of date. Today's youth won't even know what that is. Did I just say today's youth? I'm 26 for Christ's sake, I sound 60. Age-related issues aside, Trevor watches a tape and finds something disturbing as he sees himself give Kirsty a cube-shaped present.
I can't believe you got me a present. It's beautiful. Where did you get this?
See if you can open it, Kirsty.
Nice of them to finally weave the box into the movie apart from the opening credits. I was beginning to think they'd forgotten it was a Hellraiser film. Then Trevor gets another knock at his door, but upon opening the door, there's no one there.
Hello?
Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams. Oh, what's the point? If I make it my job to elevate this crap, we'll be here all day. Turns out the knock at his door was his dominatrix boss, who somehow managed to slip past him and get inside. She starts with the dominatrix act some more, and then she sets up a camera to record their bumping and grinding. And that's another thing just like Hellraiser 5. I'm a little annoyed that we have another Hellraiser film with a complete scumbag as a protagonist. I'd like to actually give a shit about the people in these films. Oh, Trevor actually tells her to get off him, as in he acted in a way that makes sense and is good. Well, colour me shocked. His boss leaves, and I gotta admit, the film does something really clever and interesting here, as the camera in front of the chair is still recording them messing around, and Trevor even moves his hand in shot to make sure, in a pretty cool effect. Okay, I'll give you that one. That was inventive, clever, and a little unsettling. It really worked. I'm actually impressed. But, can't last long, can it?
Trevor. It's perfect, Trevor. Yeah.
Wait! No!
You saw that right. The Cenobites, demons to some, angels to others, pain and pleasure, indivisible, just suffocated a woman with a plastic bag. Are you fucking kidding me? Why stop there, filmmakers? Why don't you just have Pinhead drown a bag of kittens to show how powerful and terrifying the Cenobites are? Fuck me. But again, Trevor wakes up from his nightmare. You can see this becoming a trend, can't you? He tries to tell his friend what kind of weird shit he's going through, and he tells him to go see an acupuncturist. Because Pinhead, acupuncture, makes sense, I guess. The woman begins her treatment sticking pins in Trevor's back while asking about his headaches and nightmares. And when Trevor's told the mirror is to look into his soul, we get a flashback to the shop and the merchant.
You feel desperate. Trapped by a wife who suffocates you with forgiveness. You're looking for a way out. Yeah.
And the merchant offers Trevor the puzzle ball? I didn't see that coming. Maybe this film has some original ideas. No, wait, never mind. It just turned into the puzzle box. What the hell was the point of it transforming from a ball? So we know it's a puzzle? I got news for you. It's Hellraiser 6. I'm pretty sure we fucking know that already. But anyway, Trevor once again snaps out of his dream, and while lying on the table, the room begins to shake. And here's Pinhead! And he takes one of his head pins and shoves it through Trevor's throat.
Which do you find more exhilarating, Trevor? The pain or the pleasure? Personally, I prefer pain.
And then Trevor wakes up. Again. Thanks, Pinhead. Same time next week. Also, again, filmmakers missing the point of Pinhead and making it all about the pain. I know I sound like a broken record, but it's a fundamental aspect of the character that nobody seems to get right since Hellraiser 2. Trevor gets another call from the police station, but instead of Officer Columbo, it's his partner, basically being the bad cop, as he just tells Trevor they think he killed Kirsty.
Don't play fucking stupid with me, all right? Kirsty's father and Uncle Frank had several sizable financial holdings when they passed away. Under some rather unusual circumstances.
Wow, a reference to the original film that wasn't forced. Again, I'm impressed. Because despite this film being a script just turned into a Hellraiser film like Hellraiser 5, this film gets away with it a lot cleaner, because it actually tries to weave itself into the mythos, unlike Hellraiser 5, which couldn't be fucking arsed. So again, I gotta give it some kudos. Trevor is once again allowed to go home as he looks out his window to check for the engineer. Then the film gets in some pointless tits. And at the same time, Trevor's neighbour just comes in uninvited. And she's another woman that's dying to jump Trevor's bones as she strips down to her underwear and she and Trevor start going at it on the kitchen table. Which is completely contradictory to how he acted before. I guess when it comes to really inappropriate sex, it's more important to carefully pick who you do it with rather than not do it at all. They get pretty wild until Trevor realises he's kissing a Cenobite who proceeds to attach something to his face for reasons I can't comprehend. And then Trevor wakes up again. But hey, at least it was somewhat Cenobite-like behaviour, as opposed to their previous performance, so can't complain too much, even if it was nonsensical. Trevor finds he's got blood on his hands, and in the kitchen, he finds the body of the woman dead. Trevor immediately washes off the blood, and then Pinhead appears again.
All problems solved.
I miss the original Pinhead. He made perfect sense and didn't fuck about in people's dreams just for shits and giggles. Trevor exits the bathroom to find the body gone, and he even knocks on her door to make sure. He's pleased to see her answer, but she's acting rather aloof, like she has no idea what's happened, and her boyfriend convinces Trevor to leave. But because the film likes to keep repeating itself, Trevor is once again called into the police station to talk with Officer Columbo. At the station, he and the officer speak, and he sees his friend from work is there, giving Trevor a shushing gesture as he leaves. On his way out, Trevor sees some more weirdness as a demon officer makes a paper cube, and he gets memories of buying the puzzle box from the merchant. I know I'm supposed to feel like I don't know what's real and what's a dream and that sort of thing, but the movie's doing it so often that I really don't give a fuck. If you're going to do the is it real thing, moderation is key. Otherwise you just end up jerking your audience around. Trevor goes back to the hospital, which is a decision that took him a lot longer than it should if he's hallucinating. And he goes to speak to the female doctor who attended him at the start of the film, but not before looking at a sick man in the corridor for some more added weirdness. And Trevor speaks with the doctor while he remembers what looks like a glamour modelling shot of Kirsty. But enough of that, moving on. Back at the office, Trevor confronts his friend about why he was at the police station, and Trevor says that they think he killed Kirsty.
I think I did it. Did what? Killed Kirsty. I got a report to do.
Well, that's just bad timing, isn't it? And the cop really has Columbo levels of persistence. The officer also has the puzzle box with him, and they found blood on it and in the car, which doesn't really have any kind of connection with anything, really. The officer leaves and Trevor's friend apologises, saying they should talk in the break room. In the break room, Trevor wonders what's up, and his friend has quit his job, and he mentions something he somehow knows.
I know you got your golden egg all lined up, and that's cool, but the rest of us got to make some hay for ourselves, because frankly, this job ain't paying the bills anymore. We're not all drinking from the cash cow like your wife was. What are you talking about?
You know the film is trying to unsettle you when the disturbing music starts. Trevor wonders what he's talking about, and he mentions something about a plan he and Trevor had concerning the inheritance. And when he hits a bullseye, Trevor's headache starts as he gets more memories of Kirsty's gift. Yes, the plot thickens. It's pretty clear that Trevor's gift of the box to Kirsty was a plot to have her killed and take her money. Now, firstly, last time I checked, you don't need a mystical interdimensional box to have someone bumped off and possibly get away with it. And secondly, if that was the plan, why didn't it work? Ooh, so mysterious. Trevor smashes some glass, cutting his hand. He takes the bus to the hospital, and what you're seeing right now isn't my bad editing, it's the film's. For some reason, it likes to jump cut everywhere, because the film just wants to annoy you. Trevor tries to call the female doctor, but the hospital tells him she's not there, and then another headache brings him to the acupuncturist for some reason.
There's no physical explanation for these headaches of yours, Trevor. Your body's completely healed.
Huh, I didn't realise acupuncturists had X-ray and CAT scan vision to know he hasn't got some kind of debilitating brain disorder. And once again, because she's a woman in this film, she straddles Trevor stripping to her underwear and starts sexing him up, which gets hot and heavy until she uses an ice pick. Well, that's certainly an unusual sexual technique to say the least, although come to think of it, in a Hellraiser film that's probably normal. But it doesn't matter, as Trevor describes what happened to the paramedic, but he says he collapsed on the bus instead. So yeah, another fucking psych-out moment. They get to the hospital and Trevor is wheeled in on a gurney in another small visual reference to Jacob's Ladder and the famous gurney scene. Trevor talks to the doctor asking where the female doctor is, but he says that he's never seen nor heard of her. Which, I gotta give the film some kudos again. Because if you watch the scene at the beginning again, the doctor doesn't actually acknowledge her presence. She talks to him, but he doesn't talk to her. So yeah, something else that was well done. Trevor gets annoyed of the weirdness and walks off looking for the female doctor. And after seeing the sick guy again, who's now even worse, possibly dead, he opens the office door to find nothing but a smoking janitor.
Okay, you caught me. At least let me finish, will you? I got one puff left.
Knock yourself out.
But the female doctor finds Trevor despite her apparently not existing. So I guess it was all just a misunderstanding.
Hey, buddy. What? Who the hell are you talking to?
That was a little cliched, but I liked the way it was done. At least it wasn't another dream sequence psych-out bollocks again. Back on the bus, Trevor gets more memories, specifically Kirsty telling Trevor she knows about the women we've been seeing sexing him up. Because this soup-like thick plot needs more thickening. Trevor decides to go back to the merchant and try and get some answers, finding the place completely empty, except, however, for Pinhead, who talks to Trevor from a puddle, again, just for shits and giggles. And the conversation essentially amounts to mystery, 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 I'm so fucking cryptic. Trevor gets another headache getting out of the warehouse, as the engineer appears drunkenly for another pointless cameo. And Trevor's friend shows up with a gun pointed at Trevor's head, telling him about the plan they had to kill Kirsty, making it look like a suicide to get her money. And then the guy says he'd rather die than go to prison, shooting himself in the head, which is the second time in a row someone's done that in these films. So yeah, looks like my first instincts of Trevor being a complete scumbag were right on the money. Also, clearly Kirsty has a very bad track record when it comes to men she gets to know. Well, except for Steve, but nobody gives a fuck about him. And the engineer again pops up to follow Trevor to the acupuncturist, where he finds her dead with an ice pick in her head. The engineer tries to get into the room, which Trevor, really fucking stupidly, grabs the ice pick as a weapon, until we see it's Officer Columbo instead, who arrests him on the spot. Trevor's taken into the station for questioning, where the film really starts ramping up the weird hallucination stuff, because as the officer takes a phone call, Trevor sees some officers beating someone else to death. No idea what purpose it serves, of course, other than to be weird and creepy. The officer tells Trevor that they found Kirsty's body in the river. Well, actually, in another little bit of clever subtlety, he doesn't say it's Kirsty's body, which adds to the mystery. Columbo leaves and his partner enters the room to intimidate Trevor, and he tells him to basically confess to the murder. Then he's taken out of the room and sees all the people we saw die in Trevor's file all killed the same way, gunshot to the head. And for added pointless weirdness, Trevor sees some more torture going on. The Jacob's Ladder references are very much being worn on this film's sleeve at this point. In fact, it would make more sense for this to be a sequel to that movie, although it would be equally dreadful. Trevor is taken to the morgue to see presumably Kirsty's body to identify it, with more Jacob's Ladder-like hell imagery. And after being locked in, we find out why we never saw our two cops together. And maybe the good cop, bad cop thing was more than just an act.
Good and bad, Trevor. Honest, dishonest, righteous, and evil. That's how we're all made. Just a little of both. It's just a question of how much of each.
And we're made up of just the right parts of both.
That's fucking awful CGI. Also, it's a bit too literal to have one black cop and one white cop be two halves of the same person. It's going a bit too far on the metaphor there. Also, once again, the film goes completely overboard and forgets that it was trying to be subtle and creepy. Trevor finally gets to where Kirsty's body's supposed to be as he looks around what seems to be a makeshift abattoir. And upon finding the body under a sheet, the room starts to shake and here comes Pinhead again to be the cryptic little pixie he is. Pinhead tells him that he has to pay the price he agreed upon when purchasing the box. Which, from what I remember, the contract is signed when you open the box, not when you buy the bloody thing. But then again, it was Pinhead who sold it to him, regardless of how little sense that makes. Trevor wants to see Kirsty's body, but Pinhead tells him to wait. And when he tries to grab the sheet, the good old hooked chains appear because, with 10 minutes left, we gotta start being Hellraiser eventually. And this is when the film dumps all of the answers in our lap, because Pinhead tells Trevor that he sold him the box because he's been trying to get Kirsty all these years, and Trevor was a way to do that. Firstly, Pinhead settled that debt. I mean, for fuck's sake, he literally died for her in Hellraiser 2. But no, that was the interesting, diverse Pinhead, written correctly. Hellraiser 6's Pinhead is Satan. Again. And then Pinhead gives Trevor his memories, as we see Kirsty is given the box by Trevor, with him wanting to open it. Which she does.
Kirsty.
Yeah, that's your first mistake right there. Why the fuck would Kirsty do that? There is zero reason given why she would just open the box, other than the script says so. I think she has more than a little knowledge of the destruction it can cause. Oh, but wait. Her character gets much worse. Kirsty and Pinhead finally meet again, with Pinhead saying how much he's wanted her.
You solved the puzzle. You unleashed the power. There is no turning back. I will not rest until I get what I want. And what I want is you.
However, Kirsty has another deal to make.
Wait! Wait! What if I make you a deal?
Interesting.
I want you, Kirsty. I will stop at nothing, even creating convoluted plans involving your husband to get what I want.
Perhaps would a deal change your mind?
Yes, it just might.
What the fuck? Either Pinhead is stopping at nothing to get Kirsty, or he doesn't care about her. You can't have it both goddamn ways. And again, the whole Pinhead dying to save her thing. But wait! It gets worse! Because you may have thought killing Kirsty off at the start was bad enough, but actually, this fucking film has the bare-faced fucking arrogance to turn Kirsty into a goddamn killer, as she's killed all the people we saw die. She also shot Trevor in the head while driving, causing the car to crash.
Welcome to the worst nightmare of all. Reality.
Hellraiser 6? Fuck you. You do not fucking do that to a character you have no right to. Some might say it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. The whole point of Kirsty is that she was an innocent in the actions of evil people. So to turn her into basically Frank is a huge disrespect to the character and the franchise, displaying a complete lack of understanding. The chains disappear from Trevor as he's allowed to see under the cloth to find it's his own body, which really shouldn't have surprised him. And then his story's done, as we move back to the crash site with Psycho Kirsty in Colombo. I guess any kind of satisfying conclusion to Trevor's story wasn't needed. They find a nail in Trevor's throat, which explains his previous choking moment. Also, the female doctor is a coroner, who insists on talking to cadavers to comfort them. So all the mystery is explained, I guess. I doubt you care, really. And as Kirsty turns to leave, Colombo hands her back the puzzle box, which she takes looking visibly shaken by it.
Yeah. It was my anniversary gift.
You know, I was going to turn it in as evidence. But I'll tell you what. Why don't you take it home? Something to remember and buy.
Yeah, because according to police, she'd want to remember her murdering adulterous husband. That makes sense. And then the film mercifully ends with Kirsty getting away with multiple murder. So that's nice. Again, fuck you, Hellraiser 6. It may not be the worst written movie so far, but I'm not letting the destruction of Kirsty's character go. As I said, the film has some good ideas, and as a film adapted to be a Hellraiser film, it makes it work a lot better than Hellraiser 5 did. But it's still the same movie as 5. Few changes in setting and character, but pretty much the same. And the acting's not much better. Dean Winters is forced to trudge his way through this movie, and he constantly looks just as confused as the audience is, even when he shouldn't be. He has two modes, confused and more confused. Not exactly the best range. And lastly, the Kirsty thing. I said all that needed to be said, but it's just wrong on every level to bring her back only to drag her character through the mud like this. Kirsty and Ashley Lawrence deserved a much better film to come back to. Another Hellraiser down. And before we tackle the last movies, I think with these films giving us either really bad or just plain weird cop duos, I think we should try and find something better, and hopefully see it done right. Perhaps a certain Murtaugh and Riggs can help. See you next time.